Hello, everyone. I'm Jean-Claude at BeyondMystic, and welcome to this deep woo-woo episode entitled The Galactic Download with Indigo Angel. You can find her work here on YouTube, of course, at Indigo Angel, and also on her website at indigoangel222.com. Amanda, welcome back to the show.
Hey, JC. Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here as always, and I'm excited to dive into the R-rated spiritual conversation we're about to have today. And
uh-oh, you're gonna get me in trouble again, Amanda. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on this live interactive show. Amanda and I have been trying to produce this particular episode for a while. We had to step back from it a couple of weeks ago, reschedule, and we're here today. And the reason because is it's a touchy subject, and quite a few people are pulling into some of these different concepts and have had some issues. Let's just put it that way for now. Nevertheless, Amanda and I are brave souls, and we think it's important to talk about this specific grid, what Amanda is tuning into, and specifically the fifth dimensional black spiral Stargate at the Vatican. And this is why today, for the first time since I've ever had my channel, I started the live stream without us being on the screen, so you can see the background of the show here tonight. So it gives you an indication of where we're going. We might be choosing and mumbling our words here and there as we go throughout the show, and we're going to use our own spiritual guidance to deliver this information to you guys tonight. So thank you for watching. Amanda, where do you want to start here tonight? How do we set the preface for this conversation here? Well, let me start here. Let's backtrack a couple of weeks, actually a month and a half. How did you get triggered here to look at this? You and I have done a lot of grid work investigation over the last 2 years on the show, but what got you drawn to this one specifically? How did that interest for you start?
You know, this has been on my radar for a while, and I think a lot of things recently have brought this up to the forefront of my consciousness. It's always been deep down in the unconscious and the subconscious, just waiting to kind of manifest itself. But there have been just so many global happenings right now that are just leading me to this awareness. A lot of news coming up with the Vatican, coming up with the Pope, coming up with things that are going on, particularly with him right now. And so it's kind of tipped me off to look deeper into this grid network.
Okay. And you've sent me quite a bit of material here for today's slide deck. I want to make sure I do justice here to your presentation. So help me out as you start developing the content for this episode to point me to which one you want to bring on the screen as we go here. So I guess we should just dive right in, Indigo. Where do you want to start here tonight?
Sure. So I'll just start by saying, you know, to your viewers, this is an R-rated conversation. So, I mean, everything we're going to talk about tonight, we can't necessarily like prove or disprove. So if you're listening, you're just kind of following along with your own gnosis and just how you bring this information in. Just make sure it's aligned to your own gnosis and make sure that you are, you know, discerning the information that comes through. I think also when you start talking about a lot of these types of things, there's also a level of spiritual protection that you want to keep, you know, on yourself, within yourself, around yourself, just to kind of, you know, because we are diving into what is considered a very global dark web grid. And they are using a lot of hidden technologies and unseen interconnections that manifest both physically and ethically on this earth. And most of it, which leads back to the hive. And so some of you have heard the concepts of a hive, and a hive is a center point of a collective mental activity and human behavior that is controlled or coordinated by a colony. So the Vatican, or what I like to call Vaticonia, is definitely one of the largest, if not the most supreme and powerful hive on this earth, Vatican City. What I like to call City of the Dead. And I kind of seen this as I was doing a remote view on this, is that there's the whole Vatican City itself is just a large cemetery. It is literally like, as I was tuning and scanning in, I was seeing a lot of cemeteries and burial grounds and a lot of things that tie into this. And so this itself is a part of that gateway. It's a part of that fifth dimensional black spiral stargate, which ultimately what I'm seeing is a satanic pillar on this earth. So when I was remote viewing into it, I was seeing thousands of vertical black spirals just pulling negative energies into its center at the Vatican. I really like to call this a Draco Stargate. I think anything geographically that aligns to that central vertical ascension column planetarily is operating under Draco technologies. And so I think this is the main hub that really links into hundreds of obelisks all over the Earth's grids, all over the geometric grid structures that are set up all over the world. And how they kind of power this here is they really power this through sexual energy, sacrificial ritual energy, and they also power it through an organic Saturnian matrice that's inside the Earth's grids. I've been talking a lot about the Saturnian organic matrice, and I call it an organic matrice because the planet of Saturn itself is an organic template that can be really used for good or evil on this Earth. But the power of this template is encoded inside the Earth's grids, and it pulls and tugs on the vortices, the black holes, the stargates, the wormholes, and it comes with the power of 16 Earths that really can disassemble celestial bodies. So when we have these alignments, these vortices, these black spiral stargates get stronger and pulling that central energy to it. I've talked about this a lot, and all of this information you can really actually find in the Ringmakers of Saturn. This book here by Norman Berggren.
You have a copy of that? I'm so jealous. Those are really hard to find. For a while there, they were going for like $2,000 on Amazon.
Yeah, they're really expensive. I actually got mine discounted. But I still paid like $140 for it. But yeah, I was like, I have to get this book. I have to know what's inside this.
Wow. When did you get it, by the way?
Maybe like 3 months ago.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. So that's a good price. Oh, wow. Okay. I'll have to look for one because I'd love to add one to my collection. All right. Keep going.
It's a good book because he goes into, when I'm talking about the Saturnian matrices and how it's so powerful, how this is an organic grid inside the Earth, it comes with this power of 16 Earth. So when we have the Saturn matrice pulling on the Earth, it's pulling from the inside and it's pulling with the power of 16 Earths. Because Saturn itself has 10 Earths that go across the planetary body and then six Earths within the rings. But a lot of this has been tampered by archons. It's been taken over, things like this. But at the core fundamental energy, Saturn is neither good or bad. It just is a planetary body of intelligence. But it alludes in the book that it has been taken over by luminous vehicles and that there's actually vehicles that are coming in and out of the rings of Saturn itself. So it's really interesting. Yeah, I highly recommend the read. But so with all of this, with the Vatican Stargate, the theys, the Nazis, the Dracos, the legions of the Piscean overlords, they really have capitalized on this power. And so the Black Spiral Stargate underneath the Vatican is definitely a multi-functioning machine that gives life and meaning and intelligence to the global networks of the beast machines. We've talked about the beast machines before on your channel, on my channel, how it's this just very multi-dimensional functioning system with multiple locations, multiple technologies that they're using. It really generates collective swarms of plasma power. They're also tuning into the needles, so the obelisks. This is one of their power sources, and how they're using this is a form of sexualizing the Earth's grids. So they do this with their wand stamps. You can see this one here. This is an obelisk that was brought from Heliopolis in Egypt. It's 4,000 years old. So there was actually a lot of pharaonic energy that actually incarnated into Egypt. I think the initial Draco takeover ultimately happened in Egypt and made its way through Greece and made its way through Rome and made its way through the UK. And so it brought the Dark Brotherhood energy and all of the magic and things that they used, that this was kind of incarnated into Vatican and into the Pope and into Rome. But yes, this is what they're doing. They're basically, planting a giant cock all over everything that they want to basically stake their claim on. The reproduction organs is what they worship. This is what is at the core of their ritualization and their Patagonia gates and all of the things that basically the Vatican has been linked to in terms of the dark webbing technologies.
Right.
But really, this is a form of the negative heart chakra. And this just really increases that demiurge's power here. But they also use it, by channeling the energy from the sun and all of these things. This is what's really...
There's a few people giggling in the chat, and we did give you a warning. It was an R-rated conversation, so you kind of struck a few people by surprise there, Indigo. But hold on just a sec. Hold on to that thought too. Before we go too fast, I want to bring this up for the audience too. This is an interview of Carrie Cassidy with Norman, the author of that book, The Ringmakers of Saturn. I was absolutely fascinated by this interview when it first came out. It's now probably 10 years old or so. This is a copy from her website there. So go check that out. There's a lot still in there, and it's quite fabulous. And I think it's interesting that, Indigo, you're tying into what's happening here on the planet right now, because in my interview just before this one here today, I was talking to Gosha from Cosmic Agency, and we were describing some of the different levels of control of the Galactic Federation and how perhaps some of the local control has been usurped from another control on Saturn. So it's really, really cool that you're bringing this information to the audience right now. So we're right on target. Okay, keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. And I think this is what is really being observed right now by those that are, deep intellists, deep people who are able to kind of dive into the occult knowledge right now, because I think there's a strong desire right now to kind of, detangle what's been going on in the shadow for so long. We want to bring these things to the surface. We want to be able to observe these things so we can, send this information back to the Earth's biofeedback system and just have, radical transformations and shifts on this planet, because ultimately this stuff has to change from the internal structures. This stuff has to change, from these places such as the Vatican, like these are huge hive minds that are, have such an impact on the global collective. So, I mean, we'll kind of dive into some of that, but essentially, they're using the obelisk here. This is one of their power staples, and this is what kind of keeps those Draco planetary implants and seals, monarchy seals, Vatican seals, Baphomet seals, functioning in the Earth's grids. They're doing it through lock and key technologies and squaring the circle technologies. If you want to go back to that picture of the Vatican there.
This one here?
Yeah, so if you actually look down on this at like a pyramidal viewpoint of what that looks like, that's actually a keyhole. It's actually a large ovum, and it's also...
Well, actually, let me bring that up in a different view to showcase what you're saying here. Hold on. There's a better picture. Maybe this one you can kind of tell a little bit better. Let me bring this one up for you guys.
Yeah, that one with the red there.
Yeah.
The one next to it.
Oh, this one here. Okay,
yeah. Just so you can see the overview.
Right, there you go.
But you see how that's like a large, it looks like a keyhole, right?
Mm-hmm.
So within that key, they have squaring the circle technology. So the obelisk is kind of the square. There's a smaller circular area that goes around that. The ovum there, so what they're running here, they're running two technologies. They're running lock and key technologies with squaring the circle technologies within the ovum. Now, the egg or the ovum represents creation, and they use this through Egyptian magic. So this is really a pharaonic design because the egg represents the cycles of life and death. And so they squared the circle technology with their shaft here, sexualized this ovum, and it represents asserting dominance over life and death, okay? And that lock and key represents, for one, it represents a seal that's a planetary seal, but it's also a biological seal that they place in the causal field. So in the 7th and the 8th dimensional fields, in the global fields, and then also in the biology. But the key also represents freedom, and also means locking something precious away, right? So the lock and key means it's secrets they want to lock away. And so this is the Vatican, this is the vault of secrets. And so that lock and key is secrets they want to lock away. And it also represents locking away the ability of being able to access unknown worlds and worlds that are between life and death cycles. here. So there's a lot of like implants of symbology that are kind of running those implants into the Earth's grids and also into the unconscious collective of humanity. And so that's why I say it's going to take a huge awakening with the unconscious of humanity to make these shifts we need, these global shifts we want to see.
And talk about, I'm not sure if this is where you wanted to go with the show tonight too, but how the city of London has its own obelisk, and also Washington, D.C., and that all three of those are city-states controlling this matrices. One is representing the military, the other the financial power, and then this one here, the religious or spiritual component on the planet. How does that key in for you here in the grid we're talking about tonight, if any? And if not, we can always come back to the show and talk about that trifecta of connection, of control there.
Yeah, that was something that I drew on the map that I sent you. If you want to bring up the grid, because I kind of drew like lines to each thing. My map on the Vatican grid wasn't like super impressive. I mean, I haven't had a lot of time to work on this. I just kind of wanted to put something down so I can see it. That's kind of how I visualize everything. Yeah. But essentially, there are three main hubs that pertain to the Vatican and the fifth dimensional Draco Stargate running beneath it. That would be the Washington, D.C. obelisk, Cleopatra's Needle in London, and also Caligula's obelisk in St. Peter's Square. And these three obelisks create the control pillars of society that are managed by the Dark Brotherhood leagues. This is the Victors of Christ, the Fish Gods, the Dagon, the Cthulhu cults. All of this kind of ties in. These are a lot of the unseen brotherhood forces that are really tying us into things like the Squiddy invasion, right? Yeah, that's a good picture. This is kind of like the Piscean overlord network here. You have the Piscean overlord, the squid god, and these are the over controllers or the overlords to the Dracos. I mean, these are who the Dracos report to. These are the squid nations. They've been on this earth for over 500 million years. They came through a portal system in the Pacific Ocean. And essentially, they're the ones that are kind of in charge of these dark priesthoods that have plagued humanity since the takeovers and all of, the forced breeding and sterilization things that went down in the time of Lemuria. This was kind of the inception of these things. But this is the Piscean overlord Cthulhu controlling the cosmic overlords, controlling the Draco overlords, controlling the Anunnaki overlords, controlling, different facets of the Anunnaki, Jehovian Anunnaki, however you want to see that. There seems to be like tension between the Anunnaki facets of, who's good and who's not. Controlling the fish gods, the Dagon, and ultimately the Pope, which wears the piscatory ring on his right hand, which is kind of that symbolism or that representation to that system that this entire Stargate system is tied to in terms of this black spiral Stargate.
Dude, you just blew my mind. There's so much in there. Like, where do I go from here? Okay.
Sorry,
right.
I've been like waiting to explode, like coming to talk to you. Seriously, I'm just like, I gotta get on his channel. I have too much to say. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is, I feel that this is the ring of Saturn. The Pope wears the ring of Saturn. I mean, this is kissed by the hands of billions of Roman Catholics who come and want to kiss his hand and, give power to this ring. Right. But really, this is the ring of the fisherman, and the piscatory ring, it holds the merchant's rule, and this is the rule of the Piscean age. And this is kind of what we're overcoming, and why transitioning into the Aquarian age is coming with a multitude of challenges is because this overlord system are controlling things like the crucifixion wounds in this earth, the savior consciousness and the things that, keep one's individual power out of their hands and things like this. And so prevents people from manifesting their noble desires in life and things like this, that this is what kind of keeps these things in place energetically. And so the power of this ring is immense. It holds the victory of consciousness in place, the predatorial consciousness in place. And essentially, it's a papal bull. It's a type of public decree. So they use this ring for letters, patents. It's a charter, and it's issued by the Pope of the Catholic Church. And it's what they do is they put it in a leaden seal. So they're using metals to kind of seal these things into the grids. I've talked about planetary branding before and how they use, iron and, certain metals to kind of, back up the gas lines, the crystal lines, the Earth's natural crystal networks to kind of, place seals in these things to prevent natural flows of organic healing energy in the Earth grids. And essentially, this is one way that they do it is through, stamping their letters, their documents. This is the way that they authenticate it. But it's really, this seal is really considered the seal of the Dagon, the fish god worn by the Pope. And so every predecessing Pope who was the successor of St. Peter, who was a fisherman by trade, wears this, essentially.
Wow. Okay, so let me tie something in here. Somebody in the audience just had the same idea as me, and I'm just trying to get back to your picture here. So hold on. Let me bring that up, and this one here. Okay, so going back to this big fella behind here, the Cthulhu, do you think they're still on the planet? You talked about how this came into our realm here a few thousand years ago. Are they physically still here, do you think?
I would say yes, because they're in the deep Pacific Ocean. They're in the deep Pacific Ocean, and they're very illusory.
In the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so as you're talking about the Pacific Ocean and this squid-like fellow, this is now coming up into our field of view through a show on TV, the Squid Games. Have you watched this show at all? Do you know what this is?
I did actually. I walked into the living room the other night, and my girls were sitting there watching it, and they're like, "Mom, watch this." And so I sat down, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, what is this? This is just like horrible."
Yeah. But it's interesting that, like, I saw a bunch of people dressed as this for Hollywood and basically giving the energy without knowing what they were giving the energy to. And Sarah and I were like, guys, do you actually realize what's going on with the symbology of this movie? And for most of them at this party, they had no idea. It was just like, oh no, it's a cool show on TV. I'm like, okay, sure. On that level, yes, you're right. It's entertaining, but there's way more going on there. So wow. How do you want to take a parentheses and dive into that, or we can just go back to your grid work?
Yeah,
because I know we have a lot to go through.
I think it's just a way of kind of gaining consent for these debts. I think it represents debts owed. And I think it also highlights the Squiddy invasion that was labeled under the Hydra vulgaris, or I'm not sure if I can say that word. I think I can say Hydra.
Well, speaking of that, and maybe we could tread carefully, this is an example of it, but recently there have been researchers around the world who were taking samples of different products going around, and under the microscope, they kind of picked up things that kind of look like this. I don't think we can go much further than that, but I think people who are watching the show will understand what we're talking about here, how perhaps that's all connected.
Yeah, that's the Cthulhu. So I think those Squiddy invasions were labeled Hydra, but I think that's a Decepticon. I think that these Dark Brotherhoods are masters of the game of Decepticon. And I think Hydra is far from the truth, because if you really look at that thing, it only has one head with multiple tentacles. And, if it was a Hydra, it would probably be more serpent-like with multiple heads. And so I think when you really kind of, in some other pictures I've seen of it in other forms, it actually looks more squid-like with wings, which ultimately is what the Cthulhu is. It's a squid dragon with wings. So I think when you really kind of dive into it, you can kind of see how this parasitic invasion really ties into the Cthulhu cults. So this really, it's like I said.
I'm trying to also connect in there that squid-looking fellow in the Pirates of the Caribbean, and now thinking back with what you're just saying. Oh, what were they telling us there? Of course, there's symbology with the black pearl, and you're talking about this black spiral stargate here tonight, and my ears are ringing just as I'm thinking about this, how it's all connected. Okay, keep going. I'll let you keep going.
Yeah, sure.
Well, the last thing, sorry, I interrupted you, but there's all these cool things, but maybe go back to this trifecta. Did you want to
No, maybe go back to the Cthulhu, because I was going to tell you a little bit about it.
Okay, hold on.
It is considered a malevolent entity. It is hibernating in a city called R'lyeh. It's underwater city in the South Pacific. And the imprisoned Cthulhu is apparently the source of constant subconscious anxiety for all mankind, and is also the object of worship by the Draco and the Dagon. So he is considered very apocalyptic, multi-tentacled threat of Cthulhu, basically wants to collapse civilization into an endless dark horror. And so it's hard to catch this thing, because what he does is he can disappear alongside of the boats, and he leads this illusion that he doesn't really exist at all. And herein represents the total illusion of the Piscean systems. So, I mean, I think we're just kind of hitting the core of this stuff right now, really. I mean,
right. Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I could go 10 different directions here. I just thought of something else. I was going to bring up a picture. Wow.
But I think the news, I think the things that are going on globally are kind of important to talk about too, because there's a lot of things that are coming up right now. I mean, we have like massive wars and destabilization in Ethiopia. And if you know about the King of Solomon and Queen of Sheba, that, this might be one of the locations of the Ark of the Covenant, so why are we having so much destabilization in Ethiopia right now? There's a lot of spiritual energy that's starting to shift there. We have a lot going on with the US Navy right now. There's a lot of preparations for underwater nuclear warfare with Australia, the US, China, all through those AUKUS deals. Like, that's kind of a big deal right now. I mean, there's so much attention on Australia. Like, we're looking at global pictures here of why all these things kind of matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and every time you and I do this decodes, it's like a week or two later, we have something happening in the locations that we were just talking about our show. This is what's really blowing my mind. Lakeside Laura says, "Oh, Squidward and SpongeBob." This is another perhaps reference to all of that. Again, normalizing this for our children, but even here for adults. Recently, Spectre and James Bond. Look at that. Interesting.
Oh yeah! Wow.
So it's all like in your face, literally.
It really is.
It's an R-rated conversation. It's in your face. Okay. Somebody said, "Oh, I won't say it. It's too funny." But there's a few people who were laughing with us earlier in the chat. All right. Okay. Let me see here. What else do we have? Well, right now you just mentioned a few things in the news. Let's go back to. Let's go way back here in the 800s. Is it okay to start back here, and then we'll make our way up to what's happening right now? Do you want to take this little trip here?
Yeah, sure. So on my channel, I've done a couple of videos kind of covering all of this, and I was digging into. I was trying to look for like positive things, like, what's good here, what's maybe shifting, what's changing, what's going on. So I'm diving into it. And I come across Pope Joan, and apparently there actually was a female pope. I think it was like in 1099 BC. They tried to remove this from the Vatican logs of popes that ever reigned and existed, and they tried to remove all this and eradicate this and make this conspiracy theory or whatever in the 13th century. But it was a female who basically dressed up as a man, and she I guess, was a pope for some time until she ended up giving birth, and they found out that she was a woman. And so that they actually killed her. They stoned her for that. And so this actually, I guess there's this 4-day fast that the Roman Catholic does, and it goes by another name, but this truly represents the fast of the female pope. They wanted to kind of like eradicate this from, they never wanted another female, pope to come into reign again, basically at the Vatican. And so it's kind of a big deal, because what this really represents is the Catholic Church kind of betraying childbearing in women, is how I kind of see that. And so when you look at all of the Draco agendas and things that they're attached to, and you look at all of the ritualization and pedogeddon and nursery rhyme crimes, and really, if you look at what the Dracos have been doing since 500,000 years ago. I mean, they sacrifice their own children, they consume their own children. And this is kind of the core. And this, I think, kind of exposed itself through this Pope Joan situation here. And I think this really implanted a lot of deep motherhood wounds in the ninth dimensional fields of the earth, and also in, a lot of, women's biology. And this is, representing kind of that patriarchy takeover.
Wow. Let me bring something up here too. There's this fellow on YouTube. I can't pronounce this YouTube channel for some reason. It's a weird name, but they're talking about this overlay. You've talked about these overlays of different matrices, kind of like overtaking the natural grids of energies on the planet. And in one particular videos, and I don't know which one it is, just looking at it, you guys will have to go find it. He's talking about how this Ben stone was brought over from a different place into this dimension and started basically reconfiguring the womb. And so the birthing process was just hijacked by this particular event, this technology. We can get into who and what, but it's very similar to what you were saying here. And as I was looking at that keyhole and what's happening at the Vatican there, I was like, okay, again, another reference to how we as humans are birthing basically the template of our own prison, and that's the way it's being, like that lock and key thing you were just talking about, or the pig in the hole there. So I was just like, wow, that's all, like, it's fabulous how all these humans are doing these research and they're all getting little pieces of it, and we're trying to puzzle that together. What a fascinating conversation. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to see how that ties in, so when I'm talking about these Draco seals all the time,
yep,
I left a picture of the seals of confession in the email. It's the like the coat of arms, basically, of Vatican City. It's the two keys that cross.
I have that. Here we go.
So I see this as a Vatican seal, and this is considered the seal of confession, and it hosts the global egregore food source and loose station of fear from the wrath of God, and begins at the causal chakra, and it has the large red ropes basically that tie down into the ovaries or the reproductive system. And this is an energetic seal that damages, limits, and blocks our reproductive system and clogs it with generational wounds of the patriarchy's control and loss of sovereignty over our bodies and creational gnosis. And so many of us actually incarnate from birth carrying these implants, carrying this symbolism in our body. That come from the Vatican Seal of Confession. And a lot of times this is why, generationally, this is affecting us, and why generationally these things will slowly have to, like I said, be reformed from their internal structures, because these are so deep within the generational distortions that we can't really remember the traumas. And so therefore we can't go back and heal them. And so it basically blocks the memories of the original traumas. And this is happening to both men and women. It distorts the soul's innate and natural ability to procreate with soulmates and fifth dimensional alignment to bring in higher souls.
Wow, that's fascinating. Let me bring this one up to Ji Wang. Yeah. So this is the Queen Mother of the West. In Taoism, she's basically the most powerful goddess in their pantheon. And she tends to this tree of basically the fountain of youth, if you want to call it that. And she tends to these fruit-bearing trees that only ripen every 6,000 years. And in there's these legends of all these Taoists who were trying to get to this exilure of life, or what they call the fountain of youth. And they're talking about these 3 different gates. And I won't go too deep into that, but essentially for most women on the planet right now, they're only operating with that one gate when it comes to procreation, and the other two are either on lockdown or heavily polluted. And as you were showing me this, let me go back to this one here. I notice also the 3 gates are right up here. And then you've got this entanglement, as you say here, and we're reprogramming or reprocreating using this particular template as opposed to our original template. And I think what's happening for a lot of humans on the planet is they're going to start rediscovering how to realign, realign first, and then maybe clear these 3 gates and then procreate from this portal of life using that aligned 3-gate system, as opposed to the one that has been now placed upon humanity and our procreation cycles. Wow.
Wow,
Okay,
good point.
that was a lot to say.
Yeah, wow. No, that really ties in. And you know what else kind of ties in too? So if you look at that picture again of the ovum, where there's square, lock and key technologies, squaring the circle, and technology inside the ovum. There's 3 smaller gates within that ovum. So you can see in here how you have like a tiny little blue circle, and then you have a little square, and then tiny little, those could represent those 3 gates. It could also represent the 3 aspects of the female genitalia, the clitoris, the vagina, and, the rectum, the anal. Or it could represent also how they place the obelisk there in the womb, and then ties off to the ovaries or the fallopian tubes on the right and left side as well.
Yeah. Dude, I had no idea we were going there tonight. Wow, that's fascinating. It's funny, I just had this conversation with Robin McLeavy on the show last week, and she's going to be coming back. We're eventually going to be talking about this birthing process and how humanity has to re-empower ourselves with this original template as opposed to this matrix that's been overlaid on our reproduction here. And I think this is part of where, if humans can go through this particular initiation process we're in now, and I think a lot of humans are choosing not to, and that's the conversation you and I had in a previous show, but those that are choosing to go through it, we will be tasked here to kind of redress a lot of these energies and these models if we are going to go back closer to our original template before we were manipulated in such a way. So it's exciting times. Man, but again, this conversation is blowing my mind, and I'm pretty woo usually. You're often too woo for me, Amanda. So this is really amazing. Thank you so much for expanding all our consciousness and going through that Tory gate here in the back. It's really the things that I want to keep doing on this channel. So I really a big thank you to you again for all the research you do, Amanda. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. I was excited to come on. I feel like it's been too long since I've been on and got to share with you guys here at Beyond Mystic. You guys are definitely a part of my family and a big part of my heart. So thank you for just having me here and giving me a platform to share everything that I've dived into. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a lot of reverse bioengineering that has to be taking place here within ourselves. And ultimately getting to these bigger places and locations and see what our entire energetic systems are built upon, because really at the core of all of these satanic pillars is a lot of harnessed sexual energy. This is what they want to basically, if you think about how there's a lot of, what's the best word? Homosexual activity at the Vatican. They're wanting They're wanting to dominate the root chakra of the patriarchy. This is their power point, and they want to power the God feminine technology on the earth with that sexualization. And they are not discreet about it. They are literally stamping the earth's grids with this. They're sexualizing the earth's grids, and this is what is at the core of our hive.
Incredible.
It is.
Somebody's asking, Joe Piscapo, why are they stealing our foreskins? That's a whole conversation, guys. I might actually do a show on that. Indigo, if you want to come on too, there's a lot of information on that. It's absolutely not what we think or what we were being told. That's for sure. Yeah, perhaps that for another show. But there is a connection there to also to the energy, but also to the ability of human man to reach adulthood. This the word in English, I forget what it is, but it's infantilize, or to make infant a man by removing some of these receptors that are at the end there of that particular organ. It removes the ability of the man to reach certain levels of maturity, and that's again not taught that way in a lot of our regular programmings in schools and stuff like that. So there's a lot there. And again, that reinforces the scar also and the trauma, and it's just tied into this whole program and
it's
the
definitely
distortions
a
around
way
the
they can
sexuality.
victimize our masculines, for sure.
That too, for sure. Yeah. Wow. Okay. It was an hard conversation, guys. All right, where do we go from here? Oh my God, we're already 40 minutes in. Indigo. Let me see what else we had on the beginning.
Well, yeah, I did a.
Do you want to go forward with the other women story? Where do you want to go? Let me know.
We could, or we could save that for, another day. I was just getting into how, some ways that changes might be taking place at the Vatican, by this Pope in particular, because I'm talking about these changes. How are these changes? Because a lot of people are always asking me, like, when are things going to get better? And I'm just like, well, these are planetary monadic structures that have to shift from within. And this isn't really happening on this 3D timeline. This is happening within global generational timelines. And so everything that, things are done subtly, and, they're done through, evolution and cycles. And some things that I noticed was this Pope did had a couple of divine feminines in the Vatican for the first time. I can't remember the exact positions that they took, but yeah, a new female bishop, and also like a new female secretary that basically oversees all of, everything that's going on at the Vatican. So I think slowly bringing in the divine feminine into the Vatican, maybe someday we'll even see a female pope that, a female pope comes in there if she's not, ritualized, sexualized, and MK Ultra on the way in the door through the Jesuit orders and the encryption of all those things. Maybe we would see new radical types of shifts where this hive then again honors childbearing in women and things like this, and so that might be, some things we can look forward to in the next couple hundred years.
Right. Not going fast enough, that's for sure. Wow.
It's funny. It's kind of funny. But I did do
we have to laugh a little bit, otherwise we'd cry. I know.
I did do a remote view on the Vatican, though. You can check that out on my channel. But that was that little picture I gave you that I drew up of the pink and the blue.
Oh, wait, let me bring that up for you guys. Okay, yeah. Maybe run us through this a little bit, and I'll point them to your video also if they want to get into more details.
Yeah, so I was just, drawing some things that I seen. I kind of was doing a remote view, and I did see a lot when I remote viewed into this. Right there in those gates there, I call them the etheric gates of fire. I basically seen large gate doors around the perimeters of Vatican City, and they actually had fire burning all around them. They were closed, but it felt like they were on the brink of bursting open. It really felt like these wooden looking gate doors meant something much deeper, and they tie deeply into warfare and religion. And I seen them, they were shut. And them being shut actually meant something. And what I kind of seen through the doors is that there were actually specific gatekeepers in Rome that they kept locked inside their temples and held under captive fire. And it seemed like there was some sort of soul bonding to that fire. And I kind of seen them as gatekeepers that were held to particular gatekeeping tasks, to things like new beginnings and endings. And it seemed like they had control over like earthly astral gates to temples, mosques, churches, monasteries, colosseums, political buildings. And it seemed like they worked in the Vatican, in Rome, to basically block these passageways to prevent, celestial bodies from coming through them, because they're, utilizing a lot of the Saturnian energy and technology here. And it seemed like they had control over gates of transition, gates of time, gates of duality, doorways, passageways, and also frames. They seem to focus a lot on frames here because they know that this is the way that the world sees through, is through their lenses. And so if they can basically alter these frames, then they can alter the lenses and the perspectives that people have. And so it was a lot of robed men. It was the robed community. It was the priests of Mahan. It was the Freemasons, things like this. Like, it was these types of gatekeepers that were holding the power of these gates. And so that's kind of what I was seeing as I was scanning in remote viewing. I was seeing a lot. Really, there's so much here with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm reading some of the comments about male circumcision. I'm like, yeah, we can do a whole show on that. I don't want to get into it today because it's very triggering, and you need to set up the conversation properly to have that show. But there are many researchers already who have been looking at this, and it's quite funny still to me how even today, when you talk about female circumcision, people go, well, not but you know what I mean, mutilation. People go, absolutely, that's horrendous, but okay, we're still doing it to the boys, and nobody's saying boo in a lot of cases, and they don't equate that one equates to the other. It's quite fascinating, and it just shows the level of programming still that is in this matrix to perpetuate this particular horror. It is exactly that. So, anyways, maybe for another show. So, guys, I know you're interested in this, but we'll put up a show around this maybe a little bit later on when it's time. So I appreciate that. Okay. Indigo, I think, did we go through all of your slides? Let me go back here, make sure we didn't forget anything. No, we're actually pretty there. Oh, this one here, the spine of Albion. You haven't talked about this yet. Want to set this up?
That was just something I kind of tuned into because there was current events going on, and they had that COP26, which was one of the climate change activist events. And I think the Pope was actually supposed to attend and speak at it, but he actually didn't do that. And he went to go have meetings with Clone Joe. So I think a lot of activists were actually marching this spine of Albion. But I think what this ties to energetically or ethically is into the dragon's bones, in terms of, dragon energy and things like this. A lot of this links into the obelisk networks. This is a multifunctioning ley line for both good and for bad, however you want to see it. But it's one of just the energetic networks that is, funneling energy into the Vatican fifth dimensional black spiral Stargate. And so, when you see people, activists and things marching this spine of Albion, they're definitely doing grid work. They're clearing this. This needs to be cleared. This needs to be healed. This needs to be a place of focus because of the monarchy seals and things that are all kind of existing on this very dominant ley line here.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. How does this tie in right now to this initiation process that humanity is going through right now, and perhaps some interpersonal shadow work that we all must go through ourselves, and maybe removals of some of these seals that we as humans are embodying to perpetuate this system of control? What do you have for the audience that can kind of help them, guide them, understand where they're at, and perhaps discover some of the places where they can ameliorate their own inner knowing of themselves, and perhaps to remove some of these old programs that no longer serve them? Where would you point them on your website here at indigoangel222.com?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's definitely a process. These seal removals, I wouldn't recommend them to someone who's just maybe, waking up. I think there's a lot of needing to access your own Akashic field, your own, deeper healing, deeper understanding. I mean, I would definitely direct someone first to maybe a 12th dimensional chakra clearing first.
Okay.
And take one into the ability to kind of access, their feelings, their emotions, their traumas, their past lives, and how they associate themselves to these particular timelines, such as the Atlantean timeline, such as the Lemurian timeline, such as the Aryan timeline. Where do you hold energetic trauma and scars, and what I like to call crematorial-like structures in their etheric body, those really hard to heal wounds in the etheric body, and then kind of decide, which seal removal is best for you. I think that the J seal removal is a really good place to start because the Atlantean subconscious collective field is really such a shared experience on this earth. And I think we're all really holding the DNA manipulation to that. But the Draco seal removal is really taking it one step further when you want to go all the way and really remove the satanic and Luciferian forces out of your energetic field and just become a very God sovereign and free template.
Okay. And remind the audience here, this Beyond Mystic package you've put together, it's really impressive because it's very deeply discounted already. And on top of this, you also have a Beyond Mystic code, I think, for the audience. But tell them what's included in this package and how perhaps you could help them out on this new track here of self-mastery.
Yeah, so with this package, it's a really popular package every time I come on, and I love sharing it with all of my Beyond Mystic family here. It comes with a starseed origin reading, and it comes with about like a 30-minute overview of your reading. Any questions, go deeper into the starseed, or our spiritual consultation, and then you can do a J seal removal with that. Or I tell people J seal removal, or they can do the chakra clearing if they're not ready for the J seal removal.
Okay. One of they can kind of customize it depending on what they are. Okay, very good. Okay. And so, guys, you can find that at INDIGOAngel222.com. The link is on the screen now, and it's also in the description box below. And don't forget the coupon code for that is Beyond Mystic in one word. Now, as you continue to develop all of this crazy material here, which is a lot of woo for sure. What's coming up next in your field of view? Is there any new investigations here that you want to maybe point the audience to here, either that's on the screen now or something that's coming up that you're working on?
Oh, what am I working on? It kind of just unfolds in real time for me. I think I'm probably going to allude on the Vatican a little bit more with some of these lock and key technologies and also squaring the circle technologies, because I don't think that's fully been decoded. So that will probably be where I'm going next. Okay. I think some of the most recent videos I've done, I talked, pretty extensively on the crucifixion wounds. That was a pretty big update that I would highly recommend going to watch. Also, go back to, I don't know what I've done. Can you go back to the, You want
me to go to the uploads?
I just want to see the, Australia, I think, is coming up. I think actually I'll probably be going back into some of the Australian grids because there's a lot. I can't even say
I'm going to have Tamara
going on there.
I think we have Tamara and Janine coming back on the show for another Australia decode too. So perhaps we should tie this all in together. I'll look into the dates, and definitely if you have a video that's out at the same time, let me know and I'll showcase that for the audience too. Or maybe we can come back and do another interview. There's a lot of interest there, and there's a lot going on there. Jeannie and I did this decode of the Wizard of Oz just very recently here on our show, and it was completely mind-blowing. And the relationship now to Australia and perhaps the man, not the man behind the screen who's moving all the levers, the old guy, but who gave him that technology. And so this is where this decode went. And we're probably going to have to do a part 2 or a part 3 of this. There is so much involved there. So I really appreciate you doing that work, because it is an area of interest here for humanity if we're going to understand what really is happening here behind that curtain. So fabulous work.
Yeah. Okay. Well, also, just want to throw this out there. There was a $1 billion investment. Google is investing $1 billion over the next 5 years into Sydney and Melbourne locations to basically completely design and fully activate the global cloud, and also AI technology and machinery. And I think you can really see why now the lockdowns were just so ridiculously strict on AU. Yeah. It's because they're going to push all AI agenda down there. And I know. That's why
I'll send you that episode we did on Australia. It'll give you an idea where we're going, but that's fascinating. Okay, we need to talk again about this. That'd be really, really cool. Wow. Guys, check it out. This is Indigo Angel here on YouTube. You can also follow her on her Patreon. That's patreon.com/Indigo Angel 222. And there right now, are you still leading some group meditations? What's coming up for your Patreon audience, Indigo?
Yes. I don't have the date in front of me, but I do have a group grid healing session coming up. I believe it's going to be it's on the 22nd at 6 p.m. So if anyone wants to join, I haven't really put too much thought where we're going to focus in terms of the grid. Maybe we'll just have an Intelist, a free flow type of vibe on this one, where we just all kind of come together and just, talk about whatever kind of comes up. And, I think it's nice because it's a way for those, people feel really isolated right now.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's a way to kind of come together with like-minded people who are all
so for the people
who
want to do these group meditations and focus and perhaps get starseed, where do you point them? Which package is best for them here if they're just starting out and want to join in this community?
If they want to join the group grid work session, they can just do my lowest package.
Okay.
Or they can do my middle package. It comes with a starseed origin chart, or they can do the next package up, which is the next one up after that.
Okay.
I think you have to scroll down. But that one comes with a 1 hour one-on-one with me once a month that I'm doing this month on the 21st. So if any of my patrons have not signed up, please contact me so I can get you scheduled for that day for the 21st. But yes.
So at $59 per month, you have access to all of this information, and on top of that, a one-on-one 1 hour with you
once a month. Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cheap. Okay, guys, give it a try. Regeneration, a package. Okay, that's a lot of work for you, Amanda. Amazing. All right, so that's.
Are you telling me I need to boost my prices up, Jean-Claude? That's pretty cheap.
I'm saying that's pretty cheap.
Okay.
You're offering a lot there. That's what I'm saying. That's amazing. Okay, let me bring that up. Patreon.com/Indigo Angel. There you go. You have it in the chat. And these links are also all in the description box below if you guys are watching this on replay and not in the live. So, guys, that was Indigo Angel. And of course, if you're watching on Indigo's channel, please come over here on Beyond Mystic 3. I just finally hit 50,000. This is my third try. Or my third channel here. We keep being deleted. So really thank you to all of the new fans. And why stop there? So if you haven't already subscribed, please check us out. We have even more woo content to come. So that was the Galactic Download for this week with Indigo Angel. Thank you so much, Indigo. I love you. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching today. I love you guys. Have a great day and have a great weekend. We'll see you soon. Au revoir.
Bye.